Have you ever observed that there are women who seem almost impervious to the passage of time, as if they carry a special radiance within that outshines their chronological age? This is about something deeper than mere genetics. Something operates in hidden realms beyond what we usually call aging. We are not talking about skincare or surgical interventions. What is meant is a phenomenon that C.G. Jung would have immediately recognized. The state of the soul shapes the expression of the body. What you are about to discover calls into question much of what you may have thought about the connection between inner vitality and outward appearance. The secret does not lie in what these women do, but in what they carry within their energy field, an extraordinary spiritual alignment that acts like a shield against the destructive power of time. At the end of this journey, you will understand why some souls shine while others fade, and how this ancient knowledge can also transform your own relationship to aging. The mystery does not begin before the mirror, but with the light that radiates from within. When Jung spoke about the influence of the psyche on outward appearance, he knew that consciousness shapes reality in ways we have almost forgotten today. Some women carry a vibration within them that operates outside the conventional laws of aging. Imagine a woman walking across a crowded room. She does not draw glances by effort or artificial means, but by an indescribable presence that seems to bend the light around her. Her face tells stories and yet appears fresh. Her eyes reveal ancient wisdom, and at the same time sparkle with childlike curiosity. This is the archetype of radiant femininity, the woman whose soul keeps her young. Jung described this phenomenon as the process of individuation, the union of the conscious and unconscious that leads to psychic wholeness. Women who walk this path often notice that their outward appearance changes along with their inner metamorphosis. They embody what Jung called the eternal aspect of the feminine, a timeless essence that transcends biological aging. Within them lives what Jung called the anima mundi, the world soul that invisibly connects all living beings. They have learned to attune themselves to this cosmic rhythm. Their personal story recedes behind something greater, timeless. In doing so, they confirm what mystics have always known. Consciousness shapes time, and time shapes the body that carries this consciousness. These women possess a shared ability. They transform suffering into wisdom without becoming bitter. While others are weighed down by disappointment, they turn pain into light. Think of a woman who has suffered many losses and yet carries an inexplicable softness in her face. She has not avoided life, but has practiced what Jung called active imagination, the ability to work creatively and healingly with unconscious contents. In this way, she prevents inner poisons, which would otherwise lead to premature aging, from taking root in her system. The ancient Greeks distinguished between Chronos and Kairos. Chronos is the linear, mechanical time to which most submit. Kairos, on the other hand, is sacred time, the eternal moment in which transformation becomes possible. Women who appear mysteriously young live primarily in Kairos. Chronos touches them only when necessary but never defines their essence. The beginning of this path lies in what Jung called the encounter with the shadow, those parts within us that we would rather hide. Many people waste enormous energy suppressing these dark aspects. This eventually shows in the face, in posture, in radiance. The radiant woman has made peace with her shadow, integrated it instead of fighting it. From this integration arises what the ancient alchemists called the philosopher's stone, a state of inner wholeness that radiates outward. When inner conflicts cease to constantly drain life energy, that power is freed for regeneration and renewal. The face relaxes into its natural beauty. The eyes become clear, free from the mists of inner battles. The posture straightens, with genuine, not feigned, self-confidence. Yet something deeper happens here, something directly connected with the nature of time itself. Jung understood that the psyche operates according to its own laws of time. He called this synchronicity, meaningful coincidences pointing to a reality beyond linear causality. Women who embody this extraordinary spiritual quality seem to live partly outside ordinary time. They have developed what Jung called the observing self, a part of consciousness that can distance itself from everyday drama while remaining fully engaged. This inner attitude allows them to observe their own aging process without identifying with it. A paradoxical shield arises precisely because they consciously perceive aging. It slows down. They age as participants, not as victims. Linked to this is what Jung called the transcendent function, the bridge between the conscious and unconscious that makes true transformation possible. This psychological achievement creates a kind of temporal bubble around them in which the usual laws of aging operate differently. Yes, they age, but in the rhythm of their soul's development, not according to the relentless ticking of the clock. Perhaps you yourself have met women with a timeless radiance that makes you question their true age. They move with a dignity born of inner work. Their soul wounds have transformed into strength rather than exhaustion. Their laughter comes from deep layers. Their silence carries peace. Their presence awakens awe at hidden mysteries. Science is only now beginning to understand what Jung sensed decades ago. Research in epigenetics shows that emotions directly influence how genes are activated. Chronic stress accelerates cellular aging. States of inner calm and joy, on the other hand, promote regeneration. Even telomeres, the protective end caps of our chromosomes, biological markers of aging, respond sensitively to our inner state. What Jung called the collective unconscious grants these women access to an inexhaustible source of renewal. They tap into archetypal energies that femininity has carried for millennia. This connection creates something akin to biological grace. Cellular regeneration proceeds faster. The body remains youthful. Women in vital contact with the self, the archetype of wholeness and meaning, show measurable differences. Their cortisol remains balanced, inflammation levels stable, cellular repair mechanisms function optimally. The peace of the soul preserves the youth of the body. This is not fantasy, but the recognition of a deep connection between consciousness and physicality, which Jung spent his life exploring. He recognized that psyche and body are not separate domains, but two sides of a whole, and that a change in one always affects the other. Jung also spoke of the religious function of the psyche. By this he did not mean institutional religion, but the sense of the sacred that can permeate daily life. Women who cultivate this sense treat their body as the temple of consciousness. This reverence protects them even on a level we might today call quantum-like. The radiant woman has also learned what Jung called the art of letting die, releasing what no longer serves without clinging to outdated patterns. She knows that each stage of life requires an inner death and rebirth, and passes through these transitions with dignity rather than resistance. While others are burdened by emotional weight, she practices conscious release. She preserves only what fosters the growth of her soul. Everything else she leaves behind before it engraves itself as lines and shadows on her face. This letting go also extends to external expectations and social roles. Jung called this the persona, the mask we wear in everyday life. Those who identify too strongly with it fall into rigid patterns. The radiant woman wears her masks lightly, like clothing adapted to the season. In her psyche operates what Jung called the autonomous complex of the eternal feminine, an inner structure that works independently of conscious will, but always serves the highest growth. This inner principle protects her from becoming rigid when women lose their cyclical, regenerative nature and align themselves only with linear time. Through the transcendent function, she has found a third way. Beyond the opposites of youth and age, beauty and decay, meaning and meaninglessness, in her presence one feels, this woman is friends with time. She does not fight against it. She dances with it. Yes, a field arises in which others sense how the weight of time becomes lighter for a moment. Jung would have recognized in her the archetype of the wise woman, not as an old crone, but as a living embodiment of timeless wisdom. These women have deepened their access to the collective unconscious, to the eternal feminine that is constantly renewing itself. The unconscious continually balances out the rigidity of the ego. through dreams, perceptions, and intuitions. In this way, they remain in harmony with their true developmental path and avoid the spiritual stagnation that otherwise accelerates aging. The extraordinary spiritual quality of these women is ultimately the harmonious integration of many of Jung's ideas. They have achieved what Jung called the union of opposites, the balance of masculine and feminine energies within themselves, the integration of light and shadow, the acceptance of strength and vulnerability. This inner marriage acts like psychological alchemy, transforming everything it touches. Their faces become living mandalas, symbols of inner wholeness, which Jung understood as the natural expression of the self. The symmetry of their features is not the result of genetic fortune, but of a balance achieved through conscious inner work. The light in their eyes reflects the integration of all parts of the personality into a harmonious whole. This quality is most clearly shown in their approach to suffering. Where others develop lasting marks of bitterness from pain, these women have cultivated an attitude that Jung called a religious approach to psychic material. They know that every wound carries the seed of healing. Every crisis contains the potential for greater awareness. The radiant woman has achieved what Jung called differentiated feeling, the ability to distinguish between emotions that foster growth and those that only continue old patterns of suffering. She can feel deeply without losing herself. She can cry fully without drowning. She can be truly angry without overloading her system with poison. This emotional maturity protects her from inflammatory reactions in the body that research directly links to accelerated aging. This does not mean that she avoids suffering or pretends it does not exist. Rather, she has developed the ability to endure the tension of opposites, as Jung called it, and to remain present in difficult experiences without immediately fleeing or grasping for quick solutions. In this way, she prevents the inner fragmentation that accelerates the aging process. Her nervous system remains regulated even under pressure, preserving what researchers today call heart rate coherence, a state in which breathing, heartbeat, and emotions are in harmony. This coherence profoundly influences hormones, the immune system, and cellular regeneration. The peace of the soul becomes medicine for the body. But perhaps the most remarkable thing about these women is their relationship to the future. While others cling to youth or fear time, they have developed what Jung called prospective thinking, the ability to recognize the potential for growth in every moment. They live in becoming, not in nostalgia. This awareness creates a field of possibilities. They attract experiences and relationships that support their development. As if their clear intention for growth calls the right circumstances into being, Jung would have called this synchronicity in action. Their faces reflect this openness to the future. Instead of rigid features that speak of resignation, they bear fluid expressions, faces that allow infinite expressiveness, eyes full of curiosity about what life has yet to reveal. Jung's idea of the unus mundus, the unity of all reality, is reflected in their being. They have achieved what the alchemists called the union of microcosm and macrocosm, a personal transformation so aligned with cosmic principles that their own aging process unfolds in harmony with the eternal cycles of nature. The spiritual quality they embody ultimately refers not only to their relationship with themselves, but also to the invisible forces that Jung called archetypes. They have learned to consciously work with these universal patterns of human experience. From them they draw strength and renewal. In their presence one feels this archetypal connection. They seem to carry more within them than their individual lives could explain, as if they had access to the wisdom of all women who walked similar paths before them. This collective feminine grants them a timeless authority that has nothing to do with age. Their laughter carries echoes of the eternal feminine, which Jung recognized as one of the fundamental ordering structures of the psyche. When they speak, one hears not only their voice, but something greater that speaks through them, an expression of the divine feminine using their personality as a vessel. This permeability requires what Jung called a permeable ego, strong enough to preserve identity and at the same time open to the transpersonal. a balance that demands years of inner work. Once achieved, these women radiate a clarity that transcends personal boundaries. Thus arises what Jung called the conjunctio, the mystical union of conscious and unconscious, masculine and feminine, temporal and eternal. From this inner union grows what the alchemists called the child of the wise, a renewed self that carries both the wisdom of experience and the freshness of new beginnings. The face becomes a living testimony of this inner harmony. Women who embody this extraordinary spiritual quality have learned what Jung called a symbolic life, an existence in which every experience means more than is visible at first glance. This very attitude protects them from the existential emptiness that makes so many people age, as the lack of meaning consumes their life force. For them, every day, every action becomes a small ritual of renewal. Their relationships serve as mirrors for further growth. Challenges transform into opportunities for deeper insight. This alchemical approach to experience means that nothing is lost. Every moment contributes to their development. This sense directly reflects itself in the vitality of their physical presence. Jung recognized that the psyche possesses a natural healing power, an innate tendency toward wholeness that works independently of conscious will. In women with this extraordinary spiritual quality, this function is consciously activated and nurtured. A process of continuous cellular renewal unfolds from within outward. In this way, not only their appearance transforms, but also the way they inhabit their body. At the end of this exploration, it becomes clear the source of youth is not a mythical place far away. It is a psychological state, accessible to anyone willing to walk the inner path of integration and individuation that Jung described so precisely. Women who embody this extraordinary spiritual quality have not discovered a secret recipe or magical formula. They have learned to live in harmony with the deepest currents of their psyche, to consciously work with the archetypal forces that shape human existence, and to maintain a living connection with the transcendent dimension of being. Their apparent youth is, in truth, an expression of spiritual maturity. Their integrity reveals itself in a physical appearance that shines from within. They have achieved what the alchemists called the opus contra naturam, the work against nature, which paradoxically makes true nature visible. In their presence, one senses what human beings can become when they learn to consciously engage with the forces Jung explored. They represent not only personal achievements, but collective possibilities, proof that the development of consciousness can indeed be reflected in the body. This extraordinary spiritual quality is essentially accessible to all. It only requires the courage to begin the inner journey that Jung called individuation, the willingness to confront one's own shadow and integrate one's own light, the decision to live consciously instead of automatically. The soul that walks this path discovers its timeless essence, and this discovery changes everything, including the way we age. If you have recognized yourself in this exploration or feel inspired to begin your own path of conscious aging, I invite you to subscribe to our channel. Share in the comments what has moved you most deeply and which aspects of this extraordinary spiritual quality you wish to develop in your own life. Your thoughts enrich our shared understanding of how consciousness shapes reality and how the state of the soul shapes the expression of the body. Together we rediscover what Jung brought to light.